You can have it go to produce. And it'll go to
Producer Dan.
You sound like my wife now. It'll go to producer Dan. There he is. It'll go to producer Dan, who will pop it up on the screen, reply to it himself. It goes to producer Dan, who will reply to it himself. Give him something to do. He was sitting there looking distinctly unbusy.
Forlorn.
Can send a merch message. Producer Dan, who looks like this and is in the dark today. You can have it go to
What the?
You can have it go to producer Dan, who will reply to it. And send it to producer Dan, who will, there, okay, it's working now.
Who will
either go to produce, well, it'll all go to producer Dan, who will reply to it, pop it up down there, do both of those things, or he will, and it'll go to producer Dan. I still like checkout chats better. It'll go to producer Dan, who will pop it down there, like if you have a shout out, which will go to producer Dan over here. I wasn't aiming at you, Dan.
No, it's exploded all over the floor. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Bye.
It's good.
It did,
Bye.
actually.
You sound like my wife now. Producer Dan replies to you in the bottom here, or just post your message if you have a shout out. Once you check out, it'll go to producer Dan, who will forward it to us, or put it down there, or who will reply to it himself, and it'll go to producer Dan, who will pop it up down there so you can shout out your mom or your girlfriend. Just kidding, they're not watching. And all of the cool people who produce the WAN show and me. Merch messages will go to producer Dan, who will forward them to someone internally, respond to them himself, sometimes incomprehensibly, send a little message to producer Dan so he can put it at the bottom of the screen. It'll go to producer Dan, who will reply to it. Bone bomb? Weird reply, but thanks, Dan. Good, solid effort. They go to producer Dan, who's going to pop your merch message down there. Yeah, exactly. Down there, or reply to it himself. It'll go to producer Dan. Hey, look, there he is. Wow, he's real. I mean, this could be pre-recorded. Dan, prove it's not pre-recorded.
Hi, Linus.
See, if I leave this long enough, it'll loop. It actually is pre-recorded. And it'll go to producer Dan, who will pop it up in the bottom of the screen, who will reply to it himself, who will forward it to someone who can answer your question, or who will curate it. And it'll go to producer Dan, who will, I don't know,
invoice you.
Bitterly complain about just, wanting to be valued for his work or whatever. It'll go to producer Dan. Right, I got to explain how you do it. That's producer, we'll get to producer Dan later. First, it'll go to producer Dan, who will reply to it. It'll go to producer Dan, who will reply to it. Merch messages go to our producer Dan. Boop, there he is. Ah, so cool.
Cam is like SSS plus.
I'm going to produce a resignation.
No.
I don't accept it.
He just